Hey tubers, welcome back for another adventure. And you could see I brought home some new toys. So I was in South Central PA, and specifically this guy came from East Berlin, PA, or somewhere near there anyway. Stopped to see Mike at the golf cart shop, and he was recovering from back surgery, so he couldn't come out to play. He had his junior assistant there, and I said, yo, do you still have that aluminum golf cart body? And he said, oh yeah, that's still back there in the snowbank. So we dragged it out. I looked it over. I said, do me a favor, give Mike a quick call on his phone and see what he's after for it. So I ended up giving him $100. And I'm just quickly scanning it and so forth so that you can see what's here. I asked what the backstory was on this thing. Always interesting what you find, such as welding rods. And supposedly, this was an insurance company deal, and it went to be looked at and repaired, and there was too much wrong with it to repair it. So it might have been in a flood, right? I'm thinking maybe it was in a flood. A flood could wipe the batteries out, and let's face it, if you wipe out the batteries on this thing, and you got to pop for, I don't know, if it's a 36, you got to pop for, what's that, 6 batteries? If it's a 48, you got to pop for 8 batteries. That gets pretty expensive pretty quickly, right? So I'm thinking maybe that was the story. Anyway, supposedly it was an insurance situation. I perhaps stolen and recovered, but it was broken. It went to the golf cart place to come back to life. Anyway, you could see Tough Carryall 252. It's made by Club Car. Right, I think I'm showing you Club Car, maybe not. There you go. You're seeing Club Car. If I'm reading that tag properly, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what year this is, but given the, zero emissions and, under 16, don't drive this thing, and so forth like that, I'm thinking it's relatively modern. It could be a 2000 or so. Now, I looked it over before loading it on the truck, and nothing seems to be bent. It all seems very square and proper, right? There's nothing pushed back, right? The front rails look good. They don't look bent up at all. So I'm thinking it's probably a body one could do something with. The rack and pinion are out of there, so it's really just a frame. The question comes up all the time, so what are you going to do with it? More junk, on and on. Out of all the four-wheelers I have, the only one I would consider cutting up is this one. This is a Suzuki Quad Runner 250, and it is a 4x4. I believe its engine problem is that it jumped time. It has crazy compression, so I don't think it battered the valves. I think it just jumped time. The axles on it, the boots are torn. and it does have quite a few miles. On the odometer, it has 10 or 12,000 miles. And I'm not sure the odometer is still alive. So, right, if it really has that kind of mileage on it, this thing is very well worn. But it could be interesting though to put a 4x4 underneath it. I could probably also come up with a TRX 200 SX motor, which gives me reverse on it. Just looking at this quickly, right, it's on leaf springs. Chances are I'd have to build the cradle with the engine and so forth right underneath it. I might have to cut some of that out of there, but I would have to build the cradle with the engine and so forth, and then put shocks on it with springs for the back here. So that's a possibility. It would be two-wheel drive, but the axle would be pinned together, so it would be two-wheel drive, no differential. So that gets interesting. It's cool. Obviously, it's, it's got the bed. Back in the day, it had an aluminum bed on it. You could see you would lift it up and kind of lock it into position there. Still has the arm. I mean, most of it is here. Most of it looks like it's in pretty nice shape. Also, given that it's aluminum. If I had to guess, it's probably at least 200 pounds, right? Which means I got most of the money in aluminum, just in metal, sitting right there, right? There are some heavy components, though. Those leaf springs are pretty heavy, right? You got the seat cage here. That could be considered pretty heavy, but anyway, that's what I'm thinking of doing with it. Now for the weekend stories. There's a whole pile of weekend stories that came from this. I needed a car battery for an F-150 while I was down there. So I went to this salvage yard in, I guess it's Oxford, Pennsylvania, maybe New Oxford, Pennsylvania. I believe it was called Prospect. Anyway, if you have a battery to turn in, you could pick a battery for $15. So I picked a battery that was only a year old, that he said he pulled from a Ford F-150, and he truly did. It was a lot heavier than the battery that came out of the F-150. So I'm assuming I got my money's worth there. And it seems fine. It holds a charge. It was only a year old. So for $15, that was one heck of a deal. So I was staying in Gettysburg, and Sunday morning I did a run up to Mechanicsburg to go to Williams Grove. Unfortunately, Sunday morning was kind of rainy and lousy and so forth, and there were only 2 vendors at Williams Grove, and I just couldn't get myself to go through any toolboxes to bring home any more tools. As I've been trying to clean up the basement, I've been finding all these tools that I already own, and I'm like, yo, I just don't want to add to that trouble. So if I discover something I need to get, I'll start going through toolboxes again. But right now, my decision is to stay away from going through any toolboxes. So you could see the tailgate's empty because I didn't buy anything, which was a disappointment. On Saturday, I did go to Morningstar, and because of the rain once again, there's a person there who sells hardware, and she wasn't there because typically she rolls out all these bins that she puts outside, and with the rain she couldn't do that, so you couldn't get into her normal store because it was full of all these rolling bins of stuff she puts outside. So though I did buy a few things from the woman who sells Amazon returns, nothing worth showing you. On my way back from Mechanicsville, heading back toward Gettysburg on Route 15, Sunday morning, after I finished with Williams Grove, I'm driving along, hauling. Everybody on Route 15 seems to haul along at about 75, so I was keeping up with the crowd, and the next thing I know, I kind of look in my view mirror, and I see one of Adams County Best pull off the sideline and start coming after me. He kind of pulled up alongside of me, no lights on, looked at me, kind of backed off, got behind me, and turned his lights on. So I pull over, and there's a way of trying to stay out of trouble. You don't fuss around with anything. You keep your hands up on the steering wheel, roll down the window, and you act polite. Good morning, officer. How could I help you today? And when he says, I need your license, you reach into your pocket, in my case, and you give it to him, telling him that my license is in my pocket and I need to reach and get it. And, he took my license. He had it in his hand but a second, and he greeted me, hello, Mr. Spooner. And I'm like, interesting. How does he know my name so quickly? He didn't appear to be reading it. And I thought to myself, when he came up behind me, he must have one of those automatic cameras that match your plates, right? Tells him if there's any wants or warrants, and tells you who the vehicle's registered to. So by the time he had my license in his hand, he was just verifying that I'm the person who owned the vehicle, that we were one and the same. So I thought that was interesting. And then he asked, where I was going, what I was up to. I said, I just finished Williams Grove. I'm on my way back to the hotel in Gettysburg to pick up my wife. He, at that point, he said, okay, I had my license back. He goes, well, do you know why I pulled you over? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm not young. You never admit to anything. I said, I truly have no clue, officer. And he said, you didn't have your headlights on. And I looked down, I said, oh, okay, I'm sorry, but my running lights are on. And he said, in weather like this, I really wanted to stop you and just warn you that our main accident here on Route 15 along this stretch is T-bone crashes. He said what happens is people coming up 15 are flying along, driving fast, I think are the words he used, and somebody coming in from a cross street misjudges them or doesn't see them at all and pulls out, and he goes, we have some horrible crashes here. So I just wanted to stop and warn you that such things happen and that you should be running your headlights. So I immediately turned my headlights on while he was there. The engine was still running, or actually no, the engine was on accessory because I had to turn down the radio. So anyway, I just gave the old thing a flick while he was right there, and he said, have a good day, sir. And by the way, what are you doing with the golf cart? I said, well, I'm hoping to fix it up. And he goes, you don't mind telling me where you got it from? I said, oh, I got it from Mike's over there by New Berlin. I go, do you know Mike? He goes, no, but everybody else seems to. And I thought that was a strange comment on his part. So, I don't know. Maybe Mike sells golf carts to everybody. All the local people, all the local police officers. He seems to sell a lot of electric golf carts, so maybe that's normally campground type things. Anyway, so he let me loose, and I got free, and I didn't get a ticket, and I came home with a golf cart, and all was fun. Coming home from Pennsylvania yesterday, kind of difficult. The weather was lousy, a lot of rain, a lot of wind, a lot of fog, a lot of fog, which made things annoying. A few truckers were interesting. They decided that they wanted to drive in the left-hand lane slowly. It's kind of like, hey guys, if you're gonna hit the left hand, at least go fast, and at least, you know, make it so that we could pass you. I mean, there were a couple of characters that I think were over driving their big rigs. They must have been empty. They were bouncing and swaying quite a bit in the wind, so they really must have been empty. But yeah, they kept themselves in the left-hand lane, and they didn't get out of the way. Most truckers, if you run 81, 83, 84, Route 80, if you run those, most of the times when you're coming up behind them, well, most of the time the truckers stick to the right-hand lane. They normally don't hang out in the left-hand lane. Or if they are in the left-hand lane because the road surface is smoother, normally I find when I come up on them, they normally move right over. They normally don't bogart the left-hand lane and make it hard to pass them. I thought it was strange. But once again, he must have been empty because his truck was bouncing and sailing around quite a bit. Or maybe he just felt like he was a cowboy and his truck was his wild stallion that he was riding. I don't know. Anyway, so made it home. Sorry that I missed last night's video. I mentioned what I'm going to do with this thing. I do want to get wheels back under it and get it moving. I do have another club car that's mostly complete. It's missing a few engine components. All the expensive stuff, the ignition system, the starter generator. But the front end's there. The tail end's there. It doesn't do me much good. That's a gas-powered one. This is electric. Then normally the electrics, you have the axle with the motor bolted right on the differential, right on the housing, the axle housing. So that doesn't help me much. But anyway, here we are, my newest toy. I hope to get some really good videos off of this. So in the meantime, I need you all to keep your feet down, keep your heads up, and look forward to the next video. Bye now.